Okay, guys. All right, let's start. So, who are we? Are Pizza Club. We talk about all things pizza. Today, we're going to be talking about the label, I guess, for want of a better term, of Neo-Neapolitan, in inverted commas, and why this ruffles some people's feathers, and just a general kind of breakdown on the topic. Uh, Pepe, as our native Neapolitan, how familiar are you with this term?
Hello, Tom. Hello, Peter. Not much, to be honest. So, actually, I would love to listen to you first and then provide my
Yeah, sure.
opinions.
I mean, so just to give a background for those who might be unfamiliar with the term, because I guess we all kind of assume that everyone is, but I suppose it's still probably a little bit niche in some circles. I first came across it when, I guess, around 2015, when people were talking about Roberta's in Brooklyn, and they're saying, "Oh, they do Neo-Neapolitan," and then I'd see some people just describe it as Neo, and I wondered whether that was like a dyslexic kind of misspelling of the Nia from Neapolitan, and then pieced it together and figured out, okay, it just means kind of like a Neapolitan-ish, like quasi-Neapolitan. Um, I mean, my understanding is that it's basically a term used to denote something that is very, very, very visually similar to Neapolitan, but doesn't abide by any of the, I guess, strictures of VPN about, the dough process, the cooking process, what you do with basil, what you do with cheese, what kinds of produce you use, and stuff like that. But it is so visually similar to Neapolitan that I'm assuming, and we'll get into why this becomes kind of a bit fiddly, but I'm assuming that people felt it would almost be a little bit cheeky not to include the term Neapolitan in the label, because it would feel almost like they were not giving credit where it was due. I mean, I guess, Pepe, for your perspective, probably anywhere that you've seen in the UK or the US that's doing something that you would think looks like a Neapolitan but isn't traditional Neapolitan would be a kind of Neo-Neapolitan. Is that,
Um,
Peter, does that mesh with? Yeah.
yeah, sort of, but maybe I've got a different perspective just because I've been to different pizzerias, or I remember the 2000s here in America, and what happened, I think, was wood-fired ovens became popular in the mid 2000s, I think, and they increasingly became popular, and it started with sort of, I think, a core group of people who were very serious about making authentic Neapolitan pizza.
Okay.
And once the imitators started to glob onto that idea as a concept, the authenticity, if you want to say that word, was diluted a little bit. And I think what happened operationally is the cook times just got longer. Now I'm speculating, I've not been involved in this, but that's just my perception from the outside. So you get a crispier pizza.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that was the key point of differentiation.
The key point,
is
right,
that there was a crispier cornicione. The undercarriage still tended to be pretty soft, but there was definitely more crisp and crunch to the, yeah.
Yeah, it was still well within 5 minutes cook time. So that's, I mean...
I'd guess like 2.5 kind of tops.
Right. Well, I mean, it's sort of interesting because at what point are we distinguishing Neapolitan from artisanal from basic New York pizza?
Bingo.
It becomes a little bit of a fuzzy concept there, but basically...
Well, and just because you hit upon one of the, if we're playing kind of Neo-Neapolitan bingo, that artisanal is one of the key words that becomes very germane to some of the people who don't like that term. And as I was saying to you guys, I'm kind of off comms, I'm going to do my best to steel man the position of a beloved pizzaiolo to this group, and who, I have nothing but respect for. And I'm very curious about his take on this. And Pepe, I'm going to be leaning on you as a Neapolitan proxy. So the pizzaiolo I'm talking about is Roberto Capuruscio from Keste in New York. Fantastic pizzaiolo. Anyone listening, I highly recommend you go there.
Ourselves here.
Yeah. No, like nothing but love for Roberto. And if you want to see the real deal Neapolitan, go Keste. Now, when we've had conversations about Neo-Neapolitan, he just really objects to the label. He's like, it either is or it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
It either is Neapolitan or it isn't Neapolitan. So the neo adds nothing. And if it's not Neapolitan, by which inferably I think he means if it doesn't kind of at least try to aim for the VPN type rules, then just call it artisanal pizza. You don't have to use that term Neapolitan to almost kind of trade off, the heritage and the culture. My counterpoint to him has always been, I don't think it's a cynical ploy that they're trying to trade off the Neapolitan label. I think it's that they, like I said, would feel cheeky by not including the Neapolitan label because it's so similar in style and form, aside from what, like Peter was saying, there's a bit more leoparding, the cornicione is slightly crispier, but it is ostensibly very, very, very Neapolitan adjacent. So those are the two kind of positions.
Yeah, my impression, I've just heard him elaborate once on this, is that he was particularly irked by people who criticized the Neapolitan pizza as being soupy, as being floppy and all that. He said, well, no, if it's done correctly, which the implication was these people in America didn't really know how to make it authentically, it shouldn't have that characteristic. So that's why the Neapolitan, to me, I interpreted that as they were trying to compensate for the soupiness by doing something else. And he said, you're just lost at that point.
So he sees the Neo-Neapolitan label almost as people trying to correct perceived flaws.
Yes, that was my understanding of it. That was my understanding. Now it could be wrong.
You got much further in your. Okay, no, that's very important. Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, Pepe, weigh in now, buddy, because I'm curious to hear your take as an expert on the real deal.
It's all confusing. Yeah, it's all confusing to me because, first of all, it seems to me that is a term that it's a catch-all term. So like whatever it is that resembles a Neapolitan, but it's not a Neapolitan, could be addressed as a Neo-Neapolitan or Neapolitan. I don't even know if those two terms are interchangeable or the difference. On the other side, no, I was laughing at this thing that, so the Neapolitan one is too soupy, but you don't do it correctly. So if you do it correctly, then it's a good one.
It almost becomes a no true Scotsman fallacy. But yeah.
Exactly. It's so strange to me. I mean, I appreciate the fact that you still recognize the roots where it's coming from. Like, okay, I'm taking the Neapolitan pizza, I change what I don't like, I make it, in my opinion, better, and I make it
different.
Or different. Well, no, I will say that better it is in this context the right word, because I suppose that more than better is actually fittest to the taste of the locals, which if they may be looking for a more leoparded crust or a crust or a base that is a bit more firmer, but at the same time coming from the same recipe, I do understand. I mean, I appreciate the respect to the roots and the origin, but then when you go and change it, you just alterate what's the original tradition. So I don't understand if it's really necessary call it Neo-Neapolitan, because at this point every change made on the base of the traditional Neapolitan could be then called a Neo-Neapolitan. Even the contemporary pizza that found its root in the Neapolitan traditional style, it could be called Neo-Neapolitan following this rationale, but it's actually contemporary pizza. I mean, that's how we call it. Maybe Neo-Neapolitan is just another way to call. I mean, we went for the puffy crust and we call it contemporary. We went to the other different kind of standards, which I still don't understand, and call it Neo-Neapolitan. So probably it's just another way to say, hey, we experiment, we made it diverse. So that's why.
I mean, like the other terms, and I don't know if you guys have heard these. I'm assuming you probably have. I think I mentioned one at the top is Neapolitan-ish or quasi-Neapolitan. And I kind of assume all those three terms are basically communicating the same thing, which is it's derived from Neapolitan, it's similar to, it's a departure from ...
I think it all depends also on what you refer to when you talk about Neapolitan pizza, because my assumption is that whoever is going to use this term will always look at the traditional recipe by AVPN that we know it is a standard, but it's not the only standard of Neapolitan pizza in Naples. Because, for example, you know that AVPN says that the crust shouldn't have any leopard spot.
Yeah,
But
I'm glad you brought.
yeah,
Can you
but
explain that to me?
well, I have no idea why in the mind of AVPN that they should not be considered as a status of Neapolitan pizza
Because
because
just like cards on the table. Not only do I visually think a pizza looks nicer when the cornicione has a fair amount of leoparding and a kind of nice cooked hue, and conversely, I think when a pizza is just kind of anemic and a bit pale without leoparding, it doesn't look nice. There's also a much nicer taste to the cornicione. That for me, I like that kind of. I like the char, and I think lots of people do.
Tom, can I ask you a question? And
Sure.
This is slightly adjacent to our topic, but I think it's useful. Can you look at a Neo-Neapolitan or a Neapolitan or New York, just look at the pizza and know that it's almost certainly going to taste very good, or you know how it's going to taste and it's just not going to make it. Yeah. I know when I look at a Neo-Neapolitan or Neapolitan pizza with those heavy leopard marks, I've had that before, and to me, it's a boring pizza. It's just not going to make it. Okay. That is not the Ceste. I should make perfectly clear. That's not Spacca. Yeah. But you do see that type that, especially in America, and especially I think it was popular when people were really going gaga for it, maybe like 10 years ago, and you just saw these like huge leopard spots all over the place, and everyone was gaga for leoparding. And it was just like, no, we've had that before. It's not, there's nothing really there. I mean, it's not really that great. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't say that's the hallmark or the kind of key litmus test. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah, but it makes sense that that could be one identified trait of the Neo-Neapolitan that maybe they wouldn't find in the original AVPN recipe. To answer your question about if the leopard spot would be more appealing or not to our eyes, I think it's debatable, because if you are a fan of the traditional Neapolitan that is being highlighted by AVPN, is being standardized by AVPN, I think you actually shouldn't look for leopard spots, because just for its own features, the overall pizza is so flat, so the crust is so thin compared to another kind of puffy Neapolitan pizza that you wouldn't even have a space for the leopard spots, whereas you would prefer that golden brown hue that is all uniformly around the crust. Whereas when you look for another kind of Neapolitan pizza that has a puffy crust, and when I say puffy, I'm not talking about the contemporary, because even other kind of traditional Neapolitan pizza are maybe a bit more tall with the crust, with the cornicione is a bit more puffier, and then in that case you will have some nice random spots around. Not that many though, because
I was going to say, like, even if you look to what I'm thinking, Peppe, you and I will probably agree is an excellent exemplar of world-class Neapolitan, Starita in Naples. There is, I mean, I was just checking. Well, yeah, but I mean, I was just looking at a photo of mine from Starita in Naples, and there is leoparding. It's not the super pronounced pockmark leopard. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But that can depend on so many things. I think that I'm just assuming here, because I don't know why they went with that particular trait that the traditional Neapolitan shouldn't have any leopard spots. But I think one of the reasons could be because that is the sign of a dough that has fermented just at room temperature. Because one of the issues is that when a pizza, especially a Neapolitan one, have so many leopard spots, bigger leopard spots, not a nice I wouldn't know how to say,
subtle,
dotty,
subtle,
right?
Yeah, so the dot, the small dots. So we're talking about like big spots. In that case, that would imply that the dough has spent too much time in the fridge and it was cold at the time of the baking. So and that is considered a flaw, because you didn't have the dough rest at room temperature. But it might mean so many other things. Anyway, also considering that again, small dots are nice, are appealing to see. It's like a dalmata, but big spots, it's just like you have burnt all over the place. So it's like you eating a burnt crust, and that it's not healthy. It's not good to see. And it's so many things that it's not visually appealing anyway. And
when were the VPN rules drafted?
1984.
Okay, so there's no way. I was wondering if there's any kind of confluence of timing where it came out just at the cusp of Neo-Neapolitan, and it was their way of, saying no.
No, but anyway, it is something that I noticed, that there is this big obsession with the Leopard spot in the Neo-Neapolitan pizza, or anyway in general in so many variety of American pizza style, or when people try to attempt a Neapolitan, well, not try to attempt, they decide to do Neapolitan style pizza all around the world, but they go straight for the Leopard spots. Maybe someone replicate them on purpose. Maybe they know how to do them.
I think because... and this is just my 2 cents. I get a gut feeling that Peter might agree that it was seen as actually, Peter, if you agree with me, I'm
going to come right back at you. Don't worry.
Yeah, that it was seen as such a departure from the mass-produced crap, that was uniformly anemic and white or an unhealthy yellow. That if you had massive splotches of charred blackness, that at least suggested artisanal. Ergo higher end. So it was just a lazy man's litmus test, basically.
Right. I think there's a lot truth in that. I would say one thing that I see happening again and again with different styles, and not to throw shade on the Neapolitan, but basically it is a style. And that is the obvious characteristic of a pizza. When it gets popular or when it starts to spread, that gets inflated. So deep dish in Chicago, that was blown up in the 60s and the 70s, and it got thicker, much thicker. It was modestly thick. But the same thing now with happening with tavern style. It's crispy, but we want to make it very crispy, so we're going to keep it outside for like 5 days, and it's going to be 45% hydration and all these other things. And sort of the same thing with the Leopardine. Oh my God, it's got spots. Let's make the spots bigger, because so that's the key thing.
Enhancing the base features of a style just to make it bigger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that, right. So that was the thing about Chicago. When they had pan pizza, everyone went gaga, and they noticed the pizza and the pan and the fact that it was thicker. So let's make it more thicker. Anyway, it's sort of very obvious, and sort of, if you think about it, almost necessary if you're going to get people who are not steeped in the tradition beforehand and are coming to make a profit, and they're going to see what's the most obvious thing that people are looking at. It's not very subtle or smart, but it's there. I mean, I think it's definitely there as a trend over and over again.
So Peppe, just to put you in the spot once more. So speaking on behalf of your people. No, would you as a
I'm
kind
the
of
voice of Neapolitan.
You are the voice of Naples, yeah.
Wow.
As a kind of uncommonly erudite and enlightened pizza enthusiast who's lived and sucked up the pizza scene in the UK, who knows
you can call him a fanatic.
A fanatic, yeah, a pizza extremist. No, what's I guess what's your gut feeling on Neapolitan? Do you find it offensive? Is it totally innocuous? It just depends. If it's good, it's good. If it's shit, it's shit.
No, exactly. As I told you before, I like the fact that they paid respect to the original styles, where it comes from, and even if that departs a lot from the original styles, that's exactly the point. Like we pay homage to the tradition, but then we went our own way. So we're not saying that we're making Neapolitan and then butchering the style. That would be really worse, and that is done so many times.
I agree. Yeah, that's the point that I have tried unsuccessfully many times to make to Roberto but I also now that Peter kind of dropped that wisdom bomb on me, I understand where he's coming from, that he sees it a little bit hubristic as someone saying, all these crappy things about Neapolitan, we're going to do better and call it Neo-Neapolitan. And he's saying, no, but those are not characteristics of Neapolitan. Mm-hmm. That's characteristics of crappy Neapolitan. Okay. So no, I get where he's coming from.
Me too. I mean, he's a representative of the tradition, and if I was a professional, I would be a bit upset myself. I mean, because I'm an external, I'm looking with the eyes of an enthusiast. So everything that is new, everything that is something new to tell me, it's appreciated from me. But if I would be the
Sure.
representative of that tradition, then I would be upset by myself, because I would say, hey, why don't you find your own name for your own style instead of taking our own name and just implying that you're making it better?
Well, yeah, and two, we should be a little humble when we talk about these names, because what we are saying is a particular style was already evolving and changing while they were calling it. So the Neapolitan from the post-World War II is the one that we're calling the definitive one. So it's like, okay. But I mean, it's fascinating to hear them passionate about names. I think that's really intriguing to me.
I mean, I would be curious to see what the reaction will be if then Italians will start to make a New York style pizza that will totally divert from the original one. And you know what? Because we're slowly getting intrigued by the most popular American styles. It's gonna take a while, but I think we will get at a point in maybe 10 years where we will see more regular this thing in our country. And they would have been modified. We wouldn't do the New York style like they did in New York, or the Detroit
No, of
style.
course not.
So, but how would they feel then if we would then take it and call it the Neo New York, Neo Detroit, or whatever?
Honestly, I think it's a compliment. I mean, I would take that if you did Chicago of any regard, in Naples especially. I would think it would be a huge honor for
huge
my people.
Wait a minute. When you say the Chicago, do you mean the deep dish or the tavern style?
Anything you want, Peppe. It's yours to take and
no,
modify.
Because the thing is that we already do the deep dish. We do the pizza rustica, which is basically deep dish.
but key, you don't call it Neo Chicago Pizza Rustica or something like that. That would be you got to work my name into it. You got to work the name of the city. That's the key.
The obvious hybrid that I could see with Chicago thin is Tonda Romana, or the kind of thin Baresi style, like that. There could be some cross hybridization there, or I mean, but yeah, to Peter's point, I would be gobsmacked if the general consensus in the US pizza scene, if Naples or Rome or Bari or wherever were to take a US style and play around with it, it would be awesome. I think they'd be thrilled. They wouldn't, take it as an insult.
Well, no, I mean, the main thing was how marketable would it be in Italy? That would be the main determinant, I would think. Like New Haven, who's New Haven? What is that? What's New Haven here? What is
New Haven pizza?
New Haven. Yeah.
Or if the tagline is correct, a kind of a return to Naples, which would that would potentially ruffle some feathers.
So the boomerang again.
Who are the most famous representative of the Neo-Neapolitan in the US?
Good question. I know one. Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
Go, Peter. No, you go.
Well, he doesn't like the name, but Raza comes kind of close to it to me. But he would reject that, and I'm going to just stipulate that he doesn't consider that to be that.
I think Dan Richer would be fair, would be justified to reject that, because although you can definitely see. Okay, I mean, it's not a million miles wide of the mark, but I think Ratz's pizza is sufficiently differentiated that it's just high-end artisanal. Like, it's kind of as much of a differentiation from Neapolitan as, say, Dom DeMarco's, was De Fara back in the day. Like it was, high-end, fresh basil, chiffonade, and all that kind of stuff. So his reminds me almost more of just a mini Di Fara than it does a Neapolitan. I mean, for me, the purest example of Neo-Neapolitan is still, I guess, Roberta's and kind of Paulie G's, like that whole Williamsburg-y, Brooklyn-y, vibe. But I'm sure I'm blanking on some. There's, there are so many. Like, what was my favorite one was Pizza Motto in, where was that, in near Bushwick or something, I can't remember, somewhere in Brooklyn that did my favorite kind of Neapolitan.
Does it have to be wood fired, or is that just by default? That's okay. It's just the
I think that was just the evolution. Peppe, did you have any of these?
No, I mean, I wouldn't even know how to define them. I mean, if I look at
Well, like when you were in Vegas, did you?
No, no, not in Vegas, and
Okay.
I mean, not even when I went to New York, because again, I wanted to focus on the local style. I mean,
Sure.
Vegas doesn't have any local style, but I went for the Detroit, I went for the Chicago deep dish, so like the classic American style. But I wouldn't even know how to recognize a Neo-Neapolitan. I mean, looking at the pictures from pizzas from Darren Richards, I wouldn't look at that and I'd say, oh, this is Neo-Neapolitan. I wouldn't even know that. I would just think that it's a pizza. Let's say the pizza maybe.
I mean, I think, Peter, would you like the plain margarita Neo-Neapolitan? Visually, I guess, aside from perhaps very intense leoparding, is almost indistinguishable. I guess, I don't know.
From what?
From a traditional Neapolitan.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, it just comes down to cook times. And, if you probably have north of 2 minutes, then it's the Neo. If it's south of 2 minutes, then it's probably just a Neapolitan.
Yeah, and that's
Peter's rule, by the way.
That is done to make it a bit more dry and more firm, right? And not to have it so pizza. So basically, you are depriving the pizza from all the classic features of the Neapolitan pizza.
You're taking all the goodness out of it. Is that what you're saying, Peppe?
Yeah, exactly. So it's
oh my God!
Neapolitan. It's
turn off his channel. Turn his mic off.
Yeah.
I mean,
go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
No. It's just as I told you before. It's a go-to-all term. Everything could be classified as a Neo-Neapolitan when it's inspired by Neapolitan, but it's not properly Neapolitan. I recently went to Prague, and I met this pizzaiolo who I'm talking to by several years, but this was the first time that I managed to go to his pizzeria and eat his pizza. And he calls his pizza kind of Neapolitan. And the reason why he calls it like that is because he starts from the concept of the classic AVPN dough. So direct method, starting from the water and so on and so on. But then along the way, he makes some small changes because he needs those changes. So the first change is that he needs to put the dough in the fridge, which is not accepted by AVPN. But then when he stretched the dough, he used the slapping technique, which is from the Neapolitan method. Yeah. But he doesn't use a wood-fired oven or any of the ovens approved by AVPN because he use actually his pizzeria is kind of a nice concept. I will tell you another time. But anyway, use a small portable oven, the one that is open like a shell.
A stufa.
No, not the stufa. Those small house ovens that basically they have the plate and then you close with a lid on top. Yeah. I don't know how you call them, but anyway, and he makes a number. So he said, I come from the Neapolitan school, but it's kind of Neapolitan because of course the results cannot be Neapolitan because the baking is not Neapolitan. In fact, the looks is not Neapolitan, but it has some resemblance. So I pay homage to my inspiration, but I don't take the arrogance of calling it Neapolitan. So he, of course, says kind of Neapolitan because probably he wanted to sort of attract the masses, but at the same time, not making misinformation, So it's a bit of a marketing strategy also to cover his back.
I should add the original tavern styles here in Chicago were not so squeamish about arrogance because they call themselves, and these are the original tavern styles, were called Neapolitan pizza. So basically what you were having was anything round was considered Neapolitan. It was a square in a pan that was Sicilian or bakery pizza, or
it was the same in Brooklyn.
Pizza bread.
Like that's exactly the reason why AVPN was born, because everyone made an abuse of the name Neapolitans all around the world.
But back in the day, I mean, we're talking about the late 30s, early 40s here in Chicago. No one knew what the hell we were talking about. So you had to have a city to define something. I mean, just the pizza with cheese on it would be a Neapolitan. I mean, it was that crude because no one knew anything at that point.
No.
Except for very few people.
If you think about Totono's in Brooklyn, like they still have Neapolitan pizza in the window. And like Joey Raya, friend of the club, basically said that's because for the longest time, like you said, anything round was Neapolitan. Anything square was Sicilian, and that was the differentiation.
Yeah,
especially in New York and Chicago, that wouldn't even be called Sicilian at that time because it would be called pizza bread. It was it was just very crude because no one had a cell phone. No one was on their blog to do anything and share the information.
It was a simpler time, buddy. Yeah.
That's exactly the point. I mean, the terms Neapolitan is always associated with pizza, has always been recognized as a stamp of quality all around the world in the past, and that's the reason why it was made an abuse of that, and AVPN at one point said, "Stop! We have to stop it." Which, by the way, even nowadays, I go around into so many places and see the word Neapolitan, and then I just look at the picture of those pizzas on the menu, and they are horrible at so many pizzerias. So nowadays, the situation is way better. But I remember that when I was way younger than now, and I was traveling around the world, but even traveling around Italy, and I would see the word Neapolitan just exhibiting outside of the pizzeria, and then just looking at the picture pizza, I was getting so mad. So that's why it's important to
you would call our pizza. I was just going to say, you would call our pizza, even though it's not Neapolitan. You would not call it focaccia, which I have heard.
Pizza is another thing. Focaccia and pizza are two different things.
Well, but I have heard Neapolitans derisively say, "That's not pizza, that's focaccia."
Yeah, but you have to see that so many Neapolitans so integralist, and they just have to.
I'm going to just get you on the record on this. That's all I want. That's all. Yeah, so I'm done. I'm good with it.
This quote's going to bite you in the ass, Pepe. Yeah, Peter's got you now. We probably need to wrap up now because it's almost the hour. This was fun. Thanks, guys. We are Pizza Club. You can find our socials on Instagram and TikTok and wherever else. And in addition to YouTube, we are also available wherever you get your podcasts. Anything else I need to add in terms of housekeeping, guys? I can't remember.
Do we know the topic of next week?
No, we don't know.
Okay, surprise.
It'll be decided in the next few days. But so this has been us chatting about Neo-Neapolitan, and hopefully we haven't pissed off too much of the pizza community on either side of the Atlantic. That'd be good. Anyway, thanks, guys. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you all next week, hopefully.
Peace, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye from Chicago.
Bye from London.
Bye from Naples.
Pepe. There we go. Okay. See you later, guys.